Live from Sin City, it's the Socks and Pinstripes Podcast. And now, here's the star of the show, Diet Dr. Griffin!
This is Diet Dr. Griffin back with another episode of the Socks and Pinstripes Podcast. Like, rate, and subscribe. We're on YouTube as well. How you doing this morning, Shane?
I am doing great, Griffin. Last night we had a thunderstorm that came right over my apartment, and it's been a while since I got to watch a good lightning show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Do you guys have lightning storms up there where it doesn't rain?
Uh, not, I don't, I can't, now that I think about it, I can't remember the last time it didn't rain and there was lightning. So I'm going to tentatively say no. How about you?
Because, that was one of the things when I first moved to Vegas like 20 years ago that really kind of surprised me was when you would have you'd have thunder or lightning storms, but no rain.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
I
No, when
grew,
I
I
lived in
grew
the high, what's up?
growing up on the East Coast, it was always the thing. You would have rain and you would have lightning and stuff, but you would never have lightning without rain back east. But here it's something that happened and it was a pretty common occurrence when it would happen. So,
Yeah. Must be all the metal and the rocks in the desert or
well,
something.
that and it's probably just the dry climates and things that you don't really get as much rain.
Yeah, I've actually never really thought about that, but when I grew up in Oregon on the high desert, and when you climb Smith Rock and look towards Prineville, which is down in the valley, you used to be able to watch storms rise up onto the plateau, and then you'd feel that like cold burst of air, and you could watch like lightning come towards you.
Oh, that's
Pretty cool.
cool.
Yeah.
So this week, we had some interesting developments. A guy from the Phillies who had like 10 games hit for the cycle. The Hawk Tua girl, she made an appearance at a Mets game, and everybody was freaking out that she got to throw the first pitch. I don't know why. I mean, you got like 162 games for every team, and 81 at each individual ballpark. You're gonna get some people out there throwing the first pitch that aren't really A-list celebrities.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the fun part of baseball, I feel, is like you just get every once in a while there's just some rando out there throwing the first pitch.
I mean, when the Arizona Diamondbacks had the whole issue with the bees, I don't remember if that was earlier this year or last year, where they had the bees delaying the game for 2 hours. They had the beekeeper afterwards who fixed everything just throughout the first pitch of the game.
Oh, nice. That's actually pretty cool. I respect
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, and the Mets, they already had Grimace out there throwing the first pitch, and like they say they went on this massive win streak because Grimace threw the pitch. So I don't know, like Hawk to a girl or Grimace or everybody's
Yeah.
gonna get their 15 minutes of fame, get to throw out a first pitch. So I have
Yeah.
a problem with that.
Why not? So
So the big thing that came out this week, and I think baseball kind of leaked it. It was a controlled leak. There was a story going out that baseball is giving serious considerations to making starting pitchers go a minimum of 6 innings. What do you think about this?
So initially I was just like, what could they possibly be doing? Why? We've had all these injuries this year. Also, did I say why already?
Why
And it
not?
doesn't.
Just say why a lot.
Yeah. And it really, really didn't make any sense to me. And then I started reading articles about it, and it became clear that obviously it's still years and years out of being an actual thing. And they're going to try it in the minors first, and there'll be all these limitations on pitch count and making people, if they come out injured, trying to protect players being injured. But one of the things that the Diamondbacks it was either the owner or the general manager um,
I
was
didn't hear about
saying
this.
it was hold on, I had it pulled up, but then of course my app starts working when I actually need to read off of it. But
Stupid technology.
yeah. Oh, it's the GM, Mike Hazen. And he was talking about how, there would be pullback of velocity, but then you would work on more of the finer points of pitching and pitching to contact and not just trying to overpower people with stuff, but that the genie is out of the bottle when it comes to max velocity. And I'm not sure it can go back in no matter the rules. Direct quote. So,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there is a statistical correlation between high velocity pitching and lower batting averages. And the genie is kind of out of the lamp when it comes to that.
yeah.
When players are, going to try to do whatever they can to earn a career, especially pitchers, they're going
Yeah.
to throw the highest velocities possible. And if that risks them getting an arm injury, well, so be it. They need to try to make a career because if they don't throw a high velocity, they're not going to be successful. They're going to get hit and smacked around, and they're going to not perform well and get demoted or outright released, and their career basically ends.
Yeah. Unless you're Marco Gonzalez. So.
Yeah, I mean, some guys can get around and be able to pitch at lower velocities and be successful, or they just have middling careers and they don't maybe make it a large amount of money. They don't get the big contracts that guys with higher velocities can go out and get.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this is if they figure out a way to do this perfectly, which they won't, but if there's some sort of way in which it can work without people just throwing their arm out trying to go 6 innings, I think you'll see a lot more of like Marco Gonzalez style pitching, even from people who throw fast. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for the game. And if you want to throw really hard, you just look at being a reliever.
Yeah. And the thing about baseball that has been fascinating with some of these rule changes that have they don't like how they're trying to make the game back to the way it used to be. They
Yeah.
think the game is fine the way it is, and don't make the rules, you're making it worse. But the game has evolved to a point where the only way that you could bring it back to having pitchers go longer is to actually mandate it. And
Yeah.
it's kind of annoying that it comes down to that, but things have just evolved to a point where guys are gonna guys aren't just gonna alter their strategies. Like this kind of came up when the shift was everybody was complaining about the shift being banned,
Yeah.
and they're like,
I,
why?
I was not complaining about the shift being banned. I was
Well,
just
I'm not saying you were. I'm just saying like a lot of people in general complained about the shift being banned, just fans
yeah.
and things, because they thought, why are you messing with the game, or
Yeah.
they just hit around the shift, and it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. Guys
Yeah.
don't
But they don't just hit around the shift. That was the
well that
problem.
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Like they weren't going to hit around the shift because of the fact that guys don't get paid to be Luis Ariz. They get paid to be Kyle Schwarber. They get paid to hit for power.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, Andrew
Home
Benintendi,
runs are definitely more interesting than a single that advances the runners. So,
not just more interesting. It's what, the nerds have basically revealed, and I say nerds being like sabermetrics and stuff.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more effective to hit a home run than it is to try to get three singles to score.
Yeah.
And you don't see guys like Ichiro getting paid $40 million a year. It's like Aaron Judges are going to get paid $40 million a year. The guys with ungodly power. I mean,
But so here's the thing about so we want there to be more action on the base paths, more offense in baseball. And I feel like they keep trying to tweak pitching, but something that is to be said is there is more action on the base pass when you're paying guys like Ichiro $40 million to be on the base pass. So maybe we need to change the thinking in the way that hitters hit the ball and put more of a premium on people who get on base and create action than people who hit home runs, although I would disagree with doing that. But this focus on pitch, I mean, you can also focus on the offensive part of the game as well. And in this fact of people who get on base and spray it all over the yard, but aren't necessarily flashy home run hitters.
Well, we're kind of seeing earlier in the year, saw a major drought in home runs
Yeah.
earlier this year. And I think changing the sports to bring more offense is something that all the major sports have done over the years.
Yeah.
The NBA shifted their approach completely once they started realizing that, hey, it's more effective just to jack up threes all day long to score more and more. And the
Yeah.
NFL has become more of a pass heavy offense and a pass heavy offensive league, and they've made rules to make it harder for the defense to operate.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean, like especially as far as receivers go, and them running over the middle, and all sorts of
oh yeah, and
much more protected than they used to be.
and some of the rules are definitely good for preventing injuries and trying to prevent head injuries and horse collar tackling. They have all sorts of injury issues
Yeah,
that baseball doesn't have. But the
yeah,
popularity and the rights deals that the NFL and the NBA have been able to get have really shown that offense is where it's at. And
yeah.
MLB, I think, is making these pitching moves to try to bring more offense to the game.
Oh yeah. I mean, what? I just say juice the baseballs again and bring back spider tech, and let's just see what happens. So
Yeah, I think the juicing the baseballs they have inconsistencies with the way that baseball manufactures them. There were
yeah,
years where the Yankees were getting like more of the juiced balls than other ones were, and they would be
I think that the NFL with whole Deflategate and everything. I think that baseball should have more of a rule on official game balls that the NFL has, in which they are all the same. That means they need to all come from the same place. So be it,
well, they
or
do,
that.
but the thing is that they're all still hand wound, and they're all, there's proprietary stuff that they own the process to create the balls. They own the company that makes them.
Yeah.
Not like they don't have the control over it. They just kind of do their thing. And Pete Alonso has made comments in years past about how like they do it intentionally to make players hit poorly for free agency and stuff. And it's kind of a silly comment, but
Pete, let's go. Conspiracy theories.
yeah. I just think they're bringing a lot of this stuff up to try to bring the offense back because the NBA just signed their new rights deals, and they're getting like triple the fees that they were getting before. And MLB has got to be looking at that and saying, "Hey, we've got to make some changes here to try to make our sport more money for the owners and everything." Because a lot of the
Yeah.
owners are going through it right now with the RSN deals.
Oh
So
yeah, and
let's
especially you have a lot of teams losing their are afraid that they're not even going to be able to afford their local television deals. So
Yeah. So let's circle back to the new pitching rules because there were some caveats that I had seen in the article that I was reading. So if you threw 100 pitches, you were allowed to leave the game early. If you gave up 4 or more earned runs, you were allowed to leave the game early. And obviously, if you get injured, you're allowed to leave the game early. But the
yeah,
ESPN article I was reading said that you would have to be thrown onto the injured list to
yeah,
avoid manipulation of that. Now,
yeah. I was reading the same
now,
article.
right now, the pitcher's injured list is 15 days versus the hitter's injured list being 10.
Okay.
Now, I don't know about you, but there are situations where a pitcher leaves a game due to an injury where they just needed to get them out of there. Like, guy has cramps. I've
Yeah.
seen that, especially in the summertime. God
Yep.
forbid, Hunter Green throws up on the mound, it seems like every other time he goes out. a guy
Talk about a case of the butterfly.
yeah. I mean, what happens if a guy just gets hit with a comebacker, gets hit in the forearm or something, And
Yeah.
like they just want to make sure that he didn't break something. And if, they find out they do x-rays or whatever and he's fine, it's like, why does he got to spend 2 weeks on the injured list? Because they were just making sure that he wasn't hurt. So I mean,
Yeah, I think you have to take the good with the bad, and it's trying to stop the abuse of the injured list.
I mean,
And in
the
that
Dodgers
situation,
used to
it
do
seems like
this.
a punishment, but
As I remember, the Dodgers were the reason that they had to change the injured list pitchers up from 10 to 15 because they used to manipulate it a lot with their starters.
oh, okay.
This is
I
like a
mean,
few years
like the
ago.
15-day injured, I feel like Verlander's been on the 15-day injured list since last month. So
I know the injured list is kind of weird because it's either like 10 days out or like it can be anywhere from 10 to 60. Really?
yeah. And then
And
they have to go on 60 after 60, but it doesn't even mean 60.
they
So
don't even have to really go on the 60-day. It's just that they go on the 60-day IL because it opens up a spot on the 40-man roster and it helps the
yeah,
team manage to function.
yeah.
But I feel like I think you'd have to have a modified injured list requirement, maybe to like 7 days or something, to where maybe you have to at least have them skip a start. But I think
Yeah.
2 weeks for someone getting cramps on the mound because it's hot outside or something, or just gets nauseous, it's kind of a little
Yeah.
silly.
I think missing a start seems fair. That
Yeah.
way you can't just, I mean, that stops, a little bit of the manipulation of what you're talking about. And I think what the league is worried about is the guy coming out just because he's doing bad. So if you make him miss at least a start, then strategically the team isn't going to be, um, it's not going to be an incentive just to take him out because he's doing bad, because then he's going to have to miss his next
Well, I
start.
mean
And especially if it's a favorable matchup.
that's why they have the 4 or more earned runs rules, because if he's doing
Yeah.
that, he's probably gonna be giving up 4 or more earned runs.
Yeah, I think last time Logan Gilbert gave up 4 runs in an inning, he was done after 2.1, so that makes sense.
Okay, so I don't know if you saw this earlier this week, but Robbie Ray, who who
Robbie, let's
I have
go.
lambasted numerous times in my lifetime, yet I rostered him on my fantasy baseball team this year because
Yeah.
I joked that hell froze over because I picked up Robbie Ray.
Well,
And
he played the Dodgers and he looked great. So
yeah, and then he had one of the more interesting starts this week
yeah,
where
well,
he went point 2 innings of the game, gave up 5 runs to the Braves, only gave up 1 hit, which
yeah.
happened to be a grand slam to Michael Harris.
Oh, that'll
So
do it.
he hit 2 batters, walked 2 guys, struck out 2, grand slam, or maybe walked 3 guys or something. It was, I
So
think,
he walked someone home and then gave up a grand slam, basically.
yeah, he hit 2 guys. I think he may have 3 walks. 3 walks, 2 hit by pitches, grand slam, and 2 strikeouts. But here's the
And two
craziest
strikeouts. Way to go,
here's the
Robbie.
craziest part though. Of the 8 hitters that he faced, he got
Yes.
7 of them to 2 strike counts.
Oh man, that's got to be
The
that's got to
only
be the most frustrating thing for when he looks at that film. He's going to be
Yeah.
pissed.
Yeah, and most of them, he got a bunch of he got the 2 guys that he hit by a pitch to 1-2 counts.
Oh wow.
First 2 batters of
Right.
the game, like he got him to 1-2 counts, and then he strikes out Ozuna. And it's one of those things where like it's almost mathematically impossible that ends up happening. And Harris was the only guy he didn't get to 0-2. Harris
Yeah, I mean, it's just
hit the grand
that's
slam
why
on the
they
second
play
pitch.
yeah, that's why they play the game. I mean, that's just like a total baseball day.
But
It's essentially
here's another element though about a rule that they're going to have to kind of work around with this is
yeah.
they pulled Robbie Ray after 39 pitches in the first inning.
Oh, you mean so max pitches per inning would
Yes.
probably be a good
Yes,
thing too.
they've got to come up with a max pitches per inning because I saw this
Yeah.
earlier this year with another guy I had on my fantasy team, Cole Reagans. He
Yeah.
managed to get out of the jam that he was in. I think he gave up like 7 runs or something like that and just got singled out in one of the games, I think, against Baltimore. But he had like a 40 pitch inning. And that basically means that you're done, regardless of like if you get out of it or not. The 40 pitches is like the 100 pitches for the game.
I mean, I honestly, that's 40% of the pitches you're going to throw the entire game in just one inning. In what is that? What would that be, like 20 minutes of work? So
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense
it's
to
like
me.
way too much of a workload thing where they just know that when you throw them that much in one inning, like you're done,
Hmm.
regardless of what happens, regardless of if you manage to get out of the jam or you only give up 1 run, 1 or 2 runs or something, you're done.
Yeah, I
So
mean, either that or you'd need your team to score 5 runs and stay on the field for
yeah,
half an hour while you recover. So
and they have rules in spring training also where you're not allowed to throw like more than 20 pitches in an inning. And they can
okay.
literally take you out mid at bat when you're at that level because they don't want to, hurt the guys.
Well, and that makes sense too, because you want to protect the product that's going to be on the field, literally in a couple months. So
Yeah. So another interesting thing about protecting the product, I think they have to figure out if they're gonna make a change like this is how they're gonna handle pitchers basically coming off the injured list.
yeah.
Because even if a pitcher goes like 3 or 4 rehab starts, they rarely come in and pitch 6 innings when they come back. They're usually still on a reduced workload. You don't
Well,
see
and no matter how many rehab starts you do, pitching against major leaguers is different than pitching against non-major leaguers. Even though
oh, for
like there are
sure.
some super talented people in triple and double A, but just not the same.
Yeah, and if you're a baseball, would you rather have a guy like Garrett Cole who makes his first start of the season, throw 75 pitches versus having Garrett Cole have to sit in the minors for another, 2, 3 weeks because he isn't stretched out enough to go 100 and then would have to be taken out again. So I feel like baseball
Yeah,
needs.
no, I mean you want them you want your stars on the field as much as
Yeah,
possible. I mean that's
yeah.
NBA and NFL same thing. So
The NBA is like trying to make their rules and more they want to get more their stars from playing every single day and not taking breaks. That's why they
yeah,
have to do the whole 60 games in order to be eligible for MVP thing because they don't want guys resting.
yeah, yeah. I mean makes sense. So I want to see everyone's ace as many times as I can. And when I'm going to games, I'd rather have them pitch, rather watch Garrett Cole work 4 innings coming off the injured list than have him stay down and miss a couple of starts just to work his pitches back up to 100.
What kind of strategies do you think teams are going to implement now with their pitchers, like in terms of what they're going to emphasize now that they're talking about going to 6 innings? Are they going to go more control, command based?
Yeah, I think you're going to see. So Paul Skeens been super fun to watch. He's going to be a reliever if these rules are going to actually go into effect, because you're just not going to be able to be a 2, 3 pitch pitcher and be able to go 6 innings without getting just pummeled by people eventually. Not only that, but the toll it would take on your arm to go 6 innings with just those 2 pitches. I mean, it's working for Paul Skeens right now, but he's also only pitched half of the season. And I guarantee you next year, you'll start to see a little more in the hit column, or you won't, or he's just one of those people who's just an alien who's just going to keep throwing 102 and striking people out like it's no big deal. But I think you'll start to see more of a greater mix of pitches, pitchers throwing, um, 4 or 5 different pitches. I think Logan Gilbert, one of the best pitchers in the American League, he'll throw that fastball at 98, but then he throws the cutter, sinker, and slider. And I think I think George Kirby's the curveball guy. Uh, I think he has one other off-speed pitch I can't really remember off the top of my head, but you'll start to see pitchers really start to mix their pitches and go more for contact because it's easier to throw two pitches than ground them out to second, which is more action in the field and more efficient than it is to just try to throw 98 and strike them out with overpowering stuff.
Yeah, I think the command issue is going to be something that people are going to have to address. But I hadn't really thought about how people would have multiple pitches in their arsenals because there are a lot of guys that are successful today with pretty much a fastball slider combo. Like that was
Yeah.
Spencer Strider's bread and butter.
Yeah.
And Jared Jones is another guy who has had a lot of success earlier in the year with that.
Oh,
And
and Justin Verlander at his best was a curveball, one of the old school like curveball fastball guys, and so fun to watch him throw that curveball on the top rail, and then throw that fastball like way out of the strike zone and get a swing and miss because they're worried about the curveball. So
yeah, so I'm very curious to see how teams are going to approach this now. MLB has the ability to basically unilaterally implement rules in there without the approval of the players union. It's kind of how
see,
they.
I think that is I'm against that. By the way, let me just say I'm against that. But anyway, continue.
I mean, they can do it. I think I don't expect them to do it with this situation, but
Yeah.
I think this is something that's going to take years and years to be able to effectively implement. I think they're going to talk about it probably in the next set of labor talks, but
Oh yeah.
they can't implement this thing immediately. This is something they would have to test for years and years on end. But I have a feeling when they're ready to do it, like they're going to do with the automatic strike zone, excuse me, they're going to just say, look, we're doing this. We've had enough time to test it in the minors. Well, we're doing it. And
Yeah. I
whether you
think you're
like it or not, that's just how it's going to be. Suck it up, boys.
yeah, deal with it or find a different job in which you enjoy. So
Yeah. And I do think this could lead to fewer Tommy John surgeries because people aren't going to be maxing out their efforts all the time. I mean,
yeah,
we got people in high school getting Tommy John surgery. Man, Nathan Evaldi had his first Tommy John surgery in high school.
yeah, and I think that if we read the same ESPN article, and if what they were saying, the proponents of it is to literally just try to keep pitchers from injuring themselves. I think that could potentially be a really good thing. So
Yeah. And I do think offense is going to pick up as a result of this because you're going to see slower pitches.
yeah,
And maybe, we'll get more Greg Maddux types in the future. Guys that
which I am not opposed to at all. So
yeah, I would love to see it. Guys that have impeccable control and they can put the ball wherever they want and it doesn't matter. They can just say, "Hey, I'm throwing you a curveball and you're not going to touch it."
yeah.
I would love to see more guys throwing knuckleballs.
Oh, dude, I love the knuckleball too. George Kirby throws that knuckle curve. That's fun to watch. Although it does seem like every once in a while in his games, people like it doesn't knuckle enough. People
Yeah.
just seem to tee that pitch up. So
I think Jack Flaherty has a knuckle curve as well, and he's been very effective with it this year.
yeah, well, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to do in the offseason. But we do actually have a knuckleballer in the game, Matt Waldron of the San Diego Padres. He's a
I'm
pure
gonna have to watch a
knuckleball
game.
pitcher.
Nice.
And the thing is, he can still throw like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
Oh, I mean, you could just 1-2 with that and probably have a lot of success.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I hope that if these rules get implemented, that we're going to see bring back a more knuckleball pitchers because that's just such a uniquely baseball thing. And we hadn't had one effectively since like R.A. Dickey and, Tim Wakefield. It's these
yeah,
random guys in the Necros back in the day that used to use
yeah.
those.
Oh, and they take care of their fingernails the same way classic Spanish guitarists do as well. So it's always a fun thing to listen to them talk about. So
Oh yeah, yeah. My job is interesting in the sense that I'm encouraged to have longer nails for
Hmm.
it because I have to kind of like do a lot more work with my hands and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
parts and things, and it's useful to have fingernails. And I've noticed a difference like when I trim my nails that it's a little harder to do the stuff.
Interesting. I've always chewed mine off, so that's a habit that I've never been able to break, but
Yeah, and
sometimes I wish I could have longer nails, but I just bite them off before they get there. So
yeah, so I'm very curious to see how baseball decides to handle this over the next few years.
that will be interesting. I'm for it if it does the things that they're saying it's going to do. So
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see how it changes because people would rather be starters than relievers. Uh,
yeah.
Seth Lugo is an example of a pitcher who was a longtime reliever and just kept trying to get opportunities as a starter, and he was eventually able to do that last year with the Padres, and then he's been really successful so far this year with the Royals and made the
Yeah.
All-Star team.
Yeah. No, I mean that's great for him too. So
But you have to have the arsenals, I think, to be able to do that.
yeah,
And
you just can't be you need to be more than a three pitch pitcher, I think. So
yeah, I mean, but sometimes having too many pitches though can make it harder for you to have a feel for all your pitches too.
yeah, so I agree with that, but then the other thing that you'll see a lot of people with a lot of pitches do is they'll like in the beginning of the game kind of figure out which ones they have a feel for and which ones the other teams are swinging at, and then they'll kind of just stick to the repertoire of those three even though they have the other ones. That's always like super fun to watch, like the slider working and then just pound slider, 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 fastball, fastball. And then that curveball just has them completely guessing or completely frozen because they haven't thrown it in like an inning of work or whatever. So,
Yeah, and there's a couple pitchers. Mitch Keller is a guy who has a big arsenal of pitches, and he seems to not always know how he's getting stuff to work, how it's going to be.
yeah.
Like the hitters generally tell him if he's getting
See,
smacked
that could be a
around.
problem. Yeah, that's a problem for
And
sure. So,
Yu Darvish is another guy who just loves to like learn pitches from other people as he goes. He sees somebody throw a particular pitch and he's like, I'm gonna try that out. And then he does his thing. And it's like he'll end up having like a dozen different pitches that he can throw at any given time. And sometimes having too much of an arsenal is a negative thing. So it's like
oh,
trying to find the
absolutely.
balance between like being a really strong two pitch guy, like a strider with the fastball
Yeah.
slider, or just having too many pitches in your arsenal and you've like got no feel for them.
Yeah. So you're just okay at all of them, but not great at any of them.
Yeah,
So,
so it's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out because I get the feeling that MLB is basically floating this thing out there like we're going to do this in a few years and we just want to see what everybody thinks about it, but we're going to do
yeah.
it whether you guys like it or not. So
Yeah. We're gonna let everyone rage now, and then
yeah,
we'll try to smooth it over later. So
I circle back to like when Ben Affleck was announced as Batman, everybody just had like a meltdown. And then like 2 or 3 years later, when they actually saw the movies, he's like, "Well, this movie wasn't great, but Ben Affleck wasn't that bad as Batman either. Like,
it
there
wasn't
were
as bad
worse
as George
things
Clooney. So
there were worse things in this movie than Ben Affleck as Batman." And
yeah.
I don't know if I don't want to spoil The Flash for you. I don't know if you saw that movie.
No, but I probably at this point in time you can spoil away. I don't care. So
Well, they had the end credits sequence where George Clooney came back to play Bruce Wayne in an alternate universe.
love it. I just watched the Lego Batman movie, which is Will Arnett is Batman
Yeah.
again, and I love in the opening credits. It's like DC Comics, the house that Batman built.
And on that note, we're probably not going to be able to end the show on a better whim than that. So, just to give you guys a heads up, I'm going to be going on vacation next week to see some baseball games on the East Coast. So, we may not have time to be able to find an episode to be able to record. So, just giving you guys a heads up, we might be on hiatus next week, but we'll be definitely back for the following week if
You
I'm
deserve it
unable
for
to.
your birthday, Griffin. Happy birthday.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you. Um, Anywho, that's our show for today. It was nice talking to you guys. You have any words to say before the end, Shane?
Yeah, so you can apply. So this is going to be, I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. There's an interesting thing called the Pareto principle, which is an 80-20 rule. And it states that 20% of the population does 80% of the work. And it's applied to peas and his pea pods. But someone did this for baseball in 2009
Mhm.
and found that 15% of the players account for 85.3% of the war. Something interesting to think about.
Wins above replacement there. So
Yeah. 15% of the
15% of
players
the players
do.
created all of the performance. That's
Exactly.
powerful stuff right there.
Plants and people, man.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys either next week or the week after, but we'll definitely come back with another episode of the Socks and Pinstripes podcast. See you guys.
Bye now.